Following on daily from the R. Premadasa Stadium in Colombo, just one day out from the start of England's ODI series against Sri Lanka. Scott Taylor alongside Steve Harmison. Harmer, you've arrived. First impressions of Colombo. Good to be back.
Yes,
When
usual.
was the last time you've been here?
2008, I think it was the last time I was here. So yes, good to be back. It's nice and warm. It's better than being in England, the freezing cold. And then looking forward to what should be a good series. England need a feel-good factor. Half a squad change, so a new personnel comes in. The batting unit is still the same, the one that didn't fire as much in Australia, so there'll be a lot of pressure on that. But lads seem in good spirit. We've heard from sort of Harry Brook, we've heard from Jamie Overton, and let's get the show on the road.
Teams are just warming up behind me, as you say. No fielding drills yet, but they've named the 11. Two seamers, Sam Curran and Jamie Overton, very spin heavy, so I presume we're expecting that wicket there to turn from ball one.
Yeah, I mean, the following on with Neil Manthorp, I had Luke Wood in the team, but if I had Luke Wood, no Zak Crawley and Will Jacks opening the batting, which gives England another seam option. And the only reason I went for that was because he is a natural new ball seamer. Sam's a natural new ball seamer, but they're both the same. So I can understand England have decided not to go with two left-arm options who skid on, one a little bit quicker in Luke Wood, and they've gone with Jamie Overton, who I expected to play instead of Bryden Cars. But I still think that maybe he's possibly a new or a power play bowler light. But yeah, it'll be slow. It will turn, and England have got five spin options. So I just wonder if they're whether are they going to be a seam bowler short. Well, we'll see what happens. But I think all in all, there's been a lot of talk about what's been happening, and it's now about actions. It's about where they go from here. It's important.
What do you make of Zak at the top of the order? Because I can see it working in ODI cricket, similar to Test cricket, as Harry Brook
I think
said
it's
earlier.
important. I think it's important not to look at what's been going in the past. So forget. I mean, you can't forget the numbers. The numbers are stark. They're standing there in front of you. You averages 28 in white ball in ODI cricket. He averages 33 in list A cricket. So the numbers aren't telling you that he is. But England see something in him that they believe that he's going to do the job and come good. Like I said before, I had Will Jackson open the batting, and with Ben Duckett, with Root, Bethel and Brook and Butler as the top six. But if you've got Zack Crawley here, there's no point not picking him. They did that in New Zealand, and I didn't understand that. So again, the messages that the little bit of sort of mixed messages and muddled thinking has probably happened again, because they said they were going for Ashes preparation to New Zealand, and Zach didn't play. They've come here straight after, and for me, he's not somebody that's racked up a load of numbers to where you think, oh, he's kicked the door down and be in the side in a 50-over format, and they've now picked him. So it's up to Zach now to go and perform and go and bat. He is a quality player when he's on. And these wickets that don't bounce as much might suit him a little bit more. You talk about hitting on the top of the bounce and the bouncing ball, and that's where he likes the ball coming on. But if there's less movement sideways, and then early on, these big sort of long range of movement, potential get after spin, it could be a masterstroke and a good option. But time will tell.
But how does anyone get into this ODI side if they don't play domestic 50 over? So you can't just judge it on 50 over runs, just none of them play it.
No, I think sometimes we get missing. We look at the 50 over stuff, and we haven't played a lot, and we can use that when we're getting beat.
Yeah.
Well, we weren't using that when we won the World Cup in 2019. Owen Morgan's group weren't using that, and they didn't play a great deal of 50 over cricket then. They played a hell of a lot of T20 cricket. They played a hell of a lot of Test match cricket. So that stick is it's like anything. There's an excuse to be had when you're not winning.
Yeah.
It's the same. The preparation is only bad when you're not winning Australia. So it's about this team turning 4 from 15, with 4 wins from 15, into potentially 5 wins from 16 and on to give them, because this team I don't think they're going to have to qualify, but they're in a precarious position of 8th in the ladder, and they don't want to lose here 3-0 with putting pressure on them in the summer. So getting off to a good start is very, very important. And if they win this series out here in challenging conditions, all of a sudden nobody will mention about we're not playing enough 50 over cricket.
Do you know what they didn't do in New Zealand? You mentioned New Zealand. They didn't bat 50 overs, Harmy. They didn't bat that once at all in the 3 ODIs. But looking at the 11, do you know Adil Rashid has 11 or 10 first-class hundreds, as they say? I know. He's batting 11. So surely, any time they can bat 50 overs, surely
it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. If this team doesn't bat 50 overs, somebody is getting sacked. I mean, it'd be criminal if this team doesn't bat 50 overs. You've got Jamie Overton, who's going to bat at number 9.
Yep.
Liam Dawson's going to bat at number 10. So I think with that, what that team does, though, I pose the question to Jamie, is that potentially gives them flexibility in this 50 over format, where they can keep the sort of the fast pace going. So there are times in 50 over cricket when the game needs to slow down, but with the unit that England have got, they can keep going the fast forward in such a way where I wouldn't be sort of going hell for leather 1 to 11. There you go, but you can identify passages of play where you can sacrifice potentially a Sam Curran up the order. You can potentially sacrifice a Liam Dawson up the order or a Jamie Overton up the order in a 5 over burst, where to take the run rate to a level where the game will be taken away from the opposition. So I think that's what this batting unit can do from a flexibility point of view. They've got a very, very good top 1 to 7. The bat all the way down, like we've said. So there are room, for flexibility and to steer with power all the way through the 50 overs. But the basics have to get back to basics. This team, the biggest thing this team needs to do over 3 games is bat 50 overs. Because the basics of the game of cricket in the 50 over format is if you bat your full lot of overs, you get your best chance of winning games. And that, for me, is where England need to get to. They batted 36 overs. That's as much as they batted. Three games, they didn't bat more than 36 overs in New Zealand. You're not winning any games from there. It's the same, we keep getting bowled out. Start with the basics, get to 50 overs, and you've got a chance of defending that. And I think that is very, very important to start here now. I know they're a long way from the World Cup, but still, if they bat for a long periods of time, it'll give them confidence going into what would be the 20 over World Cup as well.
The lights have come on in the stadium. We're here from Harry Brook now. Earlier on today, he addressed the media at the team hotel. It's the first time he's spoken since that altercation with a bouncer in New Zealand. Let's hear what he had to say.
I'm not going to go into any details, but obviously I made a terrible mistake, and not only as a player but as a captain, it's very unprofessional. I should be leading from the front and showing the players how it should be as a professional cricketer and a captain, and I put myself in a bad situation which I shouldn't have done. I've learnt from my mistakes. I've reflected a lot on what's happened, and I know it wasn't the right thing to do, and I want to say sorry to my teammates, to all the fans that travel far and wide to watch us spend a lot of money on coming out to watch us play cricket and supporting us, and to the ECB for putting them in a tricky situation. And it'll never happen again, and like I said, I'm extremely sorry.
So that was the England captain Harry Brook. Harmy, we've moved. We're not pitch side no longer. We found a good view up here in the gantry, and you noticed something with their fielding you want to talk about before we talk about Harry.
Yeah, I just didn't want to get hits on the side of the pitch. Yeah, I mean, England are coming for some criticism about sort of preparations, and they dropped a lot of catches in the Ashes and stuff like that. This shows you that they do prepare. They do the fielding sessions. They do the practice. This team does work hard. Why they dropped 18 catches in the Ashes, I've got no idea. I really don't. But this is there's a fielding drill going on out there, run by Brendan McCullum. Marcus Trescothick is throwing a ball. Brendan McCullum is hitting it into what you've got an inner field and then an outer field. So whenever people talk about England and say this team they play off the top of their heads and they're a little bit too relaxed, they do work hard and they do prepare. So it's just an illustration that out in the middle, day before a game, England are going through their paces in a fielding drill.
So we mentioned Harry, we heard from him earlier. He sort of held his hands up, apologised, moved on, did the right thing. I think now we just draw a line on it. There's no point talking, but what's happened is happened. The only question I had from that is, why did it have to wait until now? Why couldn't they just nip it in the bud while he was in Australia, and then they wouldn't linger for the next 10 days before he speaks to the media again?
It's one of them situations where you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. Whatever situation, you could have. If he comes straight out before the Ashes and it's at Lilac Hill and this is what's happened, all of a sudden that's all that's going to be thrown at Harry Brook throughout the series. England get the huge amount of press attention. I hope it's drawn a line under. I can't stand here in sort of good heart, with any good conscience, and say, do you know what? The book should be thrown at him. I starred in many of them films. Yes, it was a different time when we played, but he was England captain. He made a mistake. Right? Hopefully this will be a good thing for Harry Brook in the long term. He's lucky. I think he's very lucky to still be England captain. Because a lot of other management would have said, no, we'll take the captaincy off you. But I think if you've got a vision that Harry Brook's going to be your long-term white ball captain into red ball captain in the transition through from Ben Stokes, then making a mistake like this early on might not be a bad thing for him, because he learns from it. He becomes a better person. He becomes a better captain. He becomes a better cricketer. If he doesn't learn from it and he makes a mistake again, he's gone as a captain anyway. So I think it's the right thing from a management point of view to give him a huge slap on the wrist, but to leave him as England captain. And I think from Harry's point of view, let's hope it's all put to bed. It's moved on, and the only way he can go from here is by his team performing for him and him performing for his team. And it's about actions now, and what's happened in the past should stay in the past.
What will the players think of it? So I know, going back to, you mentioned you were a star in those. What did the players say to you after your instance? Or will they just not care? Storm in a teacup. It is what it is. Boys will be boys.
There'll be people that he's let down. Yep. I can't imagine Ben Stokes being too complimentary towards him.
He said Stokes wasn't too pleased.
And no, he should be. I think the coach should be non-complimentary towards him. I think some of his mates, I know he's very close to Bryden Carson there and one or two others. Hopefully they've put a protective arm around him and not saying sort of nice things to him and laughing it off. Talk to him about what he was thinking and why he got to that point. And then, as a team and as a bubble, like England did, like I said before, damned as you do, damned as you don't. Ben Stokes put a protective arm around him, and Brendan McCullum puts a protective arm around him, because he is one of your key players. He's one of your assets, but he's also a human being, and I think the human element of it, I think, needs to be looked after now, going forward. So hopefully, England, I'm sure, will have done that, and hopefully Harry will learn from that.
It's a beautiful view up here, Army, but the only downside, as you just heard, we're right next to the MC who's just doing his mic test, so hopefully you don't pick that up. But does this make the whole Harry Brook situation, does this make this series now more important, just for Harry on a personal view, regain the trust back of his players? And the only way you can do that, I guess, is by winning cricket matches, and that's what he has to do here.
That's what England have to do. They have to win. They have to. In the 50 over format, they're a long way from a World Cup, but they need to put performances in place. I don't buy that it's preparation for the T20 competition, because if it is, Zak Crawley and Joe Root are batting number 1 and number 3, and they're not playing in the World Cup. So because of that, I think what you have to gain from this is little building blocks and little steps, and I think that's what England need to get from here. Get the fundamental basics of the game of cricket in white ball format, the longer format of white ball format, and try and nail them, which is power play bowling. They need to nail that. They need to nail their middle over stuff, which I think will be fine, and then find a formula of what they're going to do at the death, because they've got 5 spin bowlers and 2 seam bowlers. It's not going to be as simple at the start and at the death, because especially in these conditions. And with the bat, that's probably being the most alarming and being the most troubling, because in the last 3 games in New Zealand, they didn't bat more than 36 overs. With this team, they have to bat more than 36 overs. It'd be criminal if it doesn't. So again, being able to bat for 50 overs, being able to put a good power play together and make sure that their middle period is setting the game up for a grandstand finish. All the fundamental basics of playing 50 over cricket, England are going to get back to, and then once they do that and they get confidence from doing that, then they can start taking the game and be a bit funky with the game. At this minute in time, I don't think they can be winning 4 50 over matches in 15. that tells you that they haven't found the right formula. They need to get back to doing the basics things well, and then they can elaborate from there.
Is this a big test of their ability against spin? You know what's coming up in the T20 World Cup? It's here in Sri Lanka and in India as well. We know the role spin's going to play. Is there any concerns? Just Sri Lanka, the likes of Hasaranga, he can be a threat with the ball as well. Is this a big test mentally for England to pass if they do win these games? Right, I can play this type of bowling, slow, low turn.
Yeah, I mean, all the sort of hallmarks of what happens in this part of the world, it comes in a nutshell here in Colombo, because this is probably the biggest turning ground in Sri Lanka. They're playing the longer format of the game, so there's more overs of spin. There's probably more consequence if you run down a wicket and chip one up in the air after 15 overs and put your mate under pressure. When you play in this part of the world, it's about responsibility, I've always believed, with a bat. It's making sure if you get in, you have to cash in, and you have to take the game as deeply as you possibly can to take the danger away from the person that's coming in next. Because it's always hard to start your innings in this part of the world, especially between overs 20 and say 35. Once 35 overs comes, you're into hit mode, you're into the aggressive mode, you're into setting the game up. In that, you've got a little bit more clarity of thought, and I think where this team has struggled is getting that middle period right. And I think if they don't get it right, then they expose the tail enders, and that in this part of the world it always goes fast forward, because if you don't play spin very well, the next person that comes in is really under the pump. I mean, there's no forgiveness here, against a very, very good quality spin unit like what Sri Lanka will, and they'll be all over them, and the noise will be up, and the pressure will be on. So, all that going into it, I keep coming back to the basics of cricket. Can England start well? Can somebody take responsibility and bat through, which would likely be Joe Root or somebody like Harry Brook? And can they give the power that they've got at, Butler at 6, Jacks at 7, Curran at 8, Overton at 9? Can they give them a position to go grandstand finish, take the game away from them, the opposition in the last sort of 15 overs down? And that is something England haven't been doing in 50 overs for quite some time.
And just before we wrap up here in Colombo, a bit of news out of the England camp today. Troy Coyley, who was your bowling coach back in 2005, he's back as the ECB's lead bowling coach.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. I mean, Troy...
What is it about Troy? I know you said he's one of the best coaches, but why? The
thing that Troy gets the bowler, he gets the person, he understands what makes that bowler tick. He'd speak to, going back to my time, he'd speak to me completely differently the way he'd speak to Simon. And he would speak to Simon completely different way to speak to Matthew and Jimmy. And I know Jimmy had a bad time with Troy. Troy tried to change Jimmy. I think that was for the good of Jimmy, but it didn't work out. For every sort of four-man prong attack that you have with 5, you have bowlers who you didn't quite work with because you were trying to change them because of what you saw was a potential injury threat. But it didn't stop Jimmy going on to be the best bowler of all time. So I think what the good thing that Troy will give them, he'll make them bowlers. Hopefully, he'll make them bowl as a unit. He'll make them think as bowling as a unit, and making sure that all the plans are put in place to make sure that when they go out every 2-hour session, they've got an idea of where they're trying to impact the game, whether it's in the first hour of the session or the second hour of the session, and that's where Troy was very, very good. So I'm pleased he's back. It's important that we get the right person, because like I've said many, many times, apart from the coach, the most important person in the dressing room after that is the bowling coach, because the game fluctuates ball by ball, over by over, session by session. And the person that gets, when you're in the field, the person that sits there for 2 hours waiting for you to come in, and he is the one that can influence 5 people and how they hit the next 2 hours, whether it's continue with the pressure that they've been putting on, patting everybody on the back because of how I had a brilliant session, or thinking of something different to come if somebody like Travis Head's got going, Steve Smith's got going, and you try and think, right, we need to change the plan, we need to move it along this way, and we need to do whatever it takes to get the next session back and wrestle the initiative back in our favour. In England, not having somebody who was connected, I felt sorry for David Saker, because you have to have a connection with your bowlers. Tim Southey wasn't there. David Saker came in just before. So the thing that Troy Cooley will do very, very quickly is know the 10 fast bowlers he's likely to work with over the course of the next, I would say, a year to 18 months, and make sure he knows the ins and outs of what makes that bowler tick, what the person's like as a human being, and what skill sets and assets they can bring to the team. And in that, I'm sure between them they'll formulate a plan on how they go about bowling in Test match cricket, because I think it got a little bit mixed and muddled throughout the Ashes.
The talking's almost over. The first ODI is less than 24 hours away. We'll have live and exclusive ball-by-ball commentary on talkSPORT 2 and the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel. Following on daily, we'll be back tomorrow. John Norman will host it back in London, looking back at the first ODI here between Sri Lanka and England. But stay tuned to the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel for plenty more from Sri Lanka. This has been Following On Daily.